Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming in. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of when the travel restrictions were implemented in Canada. It's been an incredible year, both from the amazing lows and the incredible highs that we've had. We'd like to commemorate this day with a few members of our team in this personal 1-year marking of this event. We'll have some guest speakers coming up, and we will be recording this to share with media and anyone else who might have wanted to see. So my name is Dr. David Edward Poon. I'm the founder of Faces of Advocacy, and I'll introduce the team later on. On March 2020, Canada closed all international borders to non-essential travel. Imagine if your loved one was on the other side. During an unprecedented worldwide pandemic, who would you want beside you? Is traveling to be with your dying mother a holiday? Is wanting the breastfeeding mother of your child in your home a vacation request? Is family essential? This is the story of thousands of Canadian families fighting to safely reunite over the last year. This is the story of the Faces of Advocacy. Love is not tourism. Today we're titling this Reuniting Responsibly. So today we're going to detail how we've been over the past year, what we are doing now, and what we're going to pivot to moving forward. We have a lot of changes upcoming because there's been a lot that has changed. And I know people are feeling very worried about the future, but I assure you that we are pressing forward together. So to analyze the situation over the past year, for those who don't quite have the timeline clear, it was on March 20th, the Prime Minister declared travel restrictions on all non-essential travel into Canada. So this was applied through 3 orders in council, one applying to the US and one applying to the international borders, and then one that would enforce quarantine for travelers into Canada. So when it comes to the terminology, people might be talking to you and saying, oh, you can go into Canada. Well, some people can go into Canada. And then there are extra steps, which now include the hotel quarantine, for example, that enforced it. So it's a technical definition. It might sound pedantic, but it's important that when we talk about these things, we know that there are essentially 3 streams: international, US, and then what actually happens under the Quarantine Act. And knowing this will help you discuss with people who might be pressing back and going, your family's not important. Well, we'll explain to them why it is. So the Love is Not Tourism campaign is a worldwide event, and I would say that Faces of Advocacy has been the Canadian section of it. But really we're our own thing because we had a concerted, focused campaign in order to achieve what we needed to do, and that was change the orders in council. We started off with our policy proposal, our family reunification quarantine plan, and a number of things that we did that was unique to us, I believe, in the worldwide movement because we knew exactly what we needed to do to press. And as I get into later on, we had a fantastic team bring us there. So this was one of the earliest documents we produced. This was our policy proposal with family reunification quarantine plan. It was a 4-point plan showing how that we would safely quarantine. Some of the elements ended up being integrated into the future policies that Canada had. And then our legal argument, luckily we never had to enact. We were planning a charter challenge, and it's become relevant. However, at the time, IRCC, I believe, had a more collaborative approach with us. We were able to talk to them, and that's where our exemptions came in. Over the past year, our growth has been phenomenal. Most of you know that we have a Facebook group, but with our YouTube, we have over 1,000 members. Our Instagram is almost 3,000. Our Twitter is over 3,000. And as of this morning, we have 10.6K members in our Facebook group. And I think that is just incredible given how focused and organized that we've been. This is an example of some of the social media that we've been using over the year. You may remember last year, they allowed NHL players to come into Canada, and TSN even reported that their significant other could come in. So what happened? Why were the Canadian family members not allowed in, but NHL players were allowed in? Shout out to my partner who created this graphic. We got some worldwide recognition. We were on CNN, we were on the New York Times. I think we're on a New York Times article coming up soon this week. We got to be in the national news media in Canada as well. And I think this was important because we all worked very hard to have our stories shown. I think what we can show other countries in future for their advocacy is how to get our stories, our sympathetic stories, up front in front of the media in order to change the narrative. For those of you who've been with us for a year, it was only a year ago people were saying, oh, you don't need to see your family. Now we're closer to, yeah, you got to see your family, but you got to do the hotel. We're making a lot of progress in this regard. And that has come from our consistent changing of the narrative. To our American friends, the top left, I call Vassie our Canadian Anderson Cooper. And in August, that was when we were able to be on Parliament Hill. And a little bit of trivia, this was apparently the first in-person citizen-led press conference on Parliament Hill since the beginning of COVID. And that's when all of us worked so hard together and we became truly legitimate in the eyes of political Canadians. We had support from multiple parties at the time. And that's when we really started to turn things around. You may recognize the spiritual leader of the Green Party. You may recognize Jody Wilson-Raybould, but it was, our appeal came not only from the larger political parties, but the independents and the Greens. And luckily we were able to combine and coalesce these things because we were on the right side of this fight. And that's very important for us as we talk about the future, because I've realized a lot of people may be feeling struggling right now, not sure why the pendulum hasn't swung in our direction. But remember, this was how it was back then. And it was very difficult. We had support coming in and coalescing, but it took time. Now, you mentioned how the mental toll, and I wanted to ask, what is the mental health toll on Canadians from family separation?
Oh, I have one of my constituents is so heartbroken, and she's a senior like me. She's a bit older than me. And she said, under the family rules of of the people allowed into Canada, I don't have any family. She said, I do have family, but they happen to be people. It was a very, very emotional way of putting it. So I need to see my family, and I need to be able to invite them to come. And yes, we have a plan for isolation, but on the current rules, she can't see her grandchild. And that's just, unacceptable. We need to fix this. We do know we can do it safely.
This is Elizabeth May talking about the importance of family. And we had a number of champion interviews with high-level MPs who were explaining the importance of family reunification, talking to us, further legitimizing our campaign. By this point of this interview, we had only been in existence by about 4 to 5 months. And so it showed a lot of growth. And that's something that I think we all should be very, very proud of. We did a number of things. We have Reunification Thursdays, which currently is being run by our Director of Operations. We had phone protests, which a number of you volunteered for. Apparently, we were the only ones calling the immigration people at the time, and they were sick of us. And we kept calling. They knew our names. Our virtual rally, which was our Zoom protest, we were responsible. We didn't go marching in the streets, worrying about the spread of COVID. We did a fantastic 300-person Zoom protest. We had participation of all 5 political parties there. And I think it was very effective because it was only a week later that our exemptions were announced. We had Twitter storms organized by our social media people. We had commenting under the articles to change the narrative. We had petitions presented in the House of Commons. And I have a great thank to all of you who donated, because you guys have really taken a piece of ownership for this entire cause. And a lot of this we could not have done without your generosity. Here's a picture of our virtual protest. This was back about a week before our exemptions came in. It was just incredible. We had cross-partisan support. We had speakers. We had a lot of media attention that day. And I think this was our capstone event for that year, because this picture is showing all of us holding up signs saying how many days apart we've been. And I think that really touched the hearts of many Canadians. There were times that I'd get contacted, hey, you guys have really changed my opinion. I thought no one should come into Canada, but now I realize, you know what, some should. And I think that mattered a lot. All of you did incredible. Sarah Campbell, who is our unofficial face of the Faces of Advocacy, who wrote 132 letters to Minister Mendicino to have family reunification happen. All of these things accumulated into something that I will always remember as one of the most incredible moments of our lives. On October 2nd, 2020, we succeeded.
Today, I am announcing a process that will make it possible for additional families and loved ones to be reunited. First, we will create a process to allow extended family members of Canadian citizens and permanent residents to enter the country while respecting quarantine requirements. Beginning on October 8, 2020, certain extended family members of Canadian citizens and permanent residents will be eligible to travel to and enter the country.
This was incredible. I don't know how many of you guys were there during that time, but that was a wow moment. You know, it actually happened. Now, I mean, we can talk about the background now, but this moment was supposed to come a few weeks beforehand. I remember getting phone calls from political people. Yeah, it's happening today. It's happening today. And then in the last minute, to be torn away. I always knew that we would succeed, but it was a little bit scary sometimes at how often it was pulled away from us. There were changes in the political atmosphere with the provinces. Sometimes I'm not entirely sure, but I think people just got cold feet. But I think because of our virtual rally, we had enough pressure on the government to do what they felt was politically the right temperature for them to do what we felt was right. So I'm proud of all of us for getting into this moment. As we look back on the past year, I want you to remember that through all the struggle, we got a special press conference just for us. And that is something that we can always remember. This is some of the news articles we did afterwards. I want to bring your attention to the bottom left. Many of you guys know the story of Donna McCall. She is a Canadian mother who married an American man, and her children are American, and they were unable to enter Canada because of the restrictions. What that meant was Donna McCall had to say goodbye to her children through FaceTime. This was something that we thought was completely unacceptable. And so a lot of our advocacy today is in honor of her. The reason that video is important is this is John, the widower of Donna McCall, speaking to who we believe is the first compassionate exemption applicant. So this man's partner, Charlie Santiago, had a terminal illness. Her sister was unable to come to Canada, but thanks to the exemptions that we fought for, that the McCalls fought for, they were able to meet and bring the sister over. And that was a bright spot in all the pain that came together. So if at any point you guys feel that we're burning out, it's been a lot of work, I want you to remember this moment because we had a significant impact on at least one person. The situation after was very interesting. So some of you will remember that there was a flawed extended family authorization system rollout. So a lot of people were applying, people were not being processed in order. Now that we look back on it, we have an idea of what actually occurred. Number one was that there was a huge influx of people coming in. And number two, the IRCC, as they built a new process for the extended family authorization system, they did not know how to process these applications. So because of that issue, Americans, for example, have never been in the system before, and that became a huge backlog. We wrote a number of reports on this problem. We brought it up directly with Parliament, and so far it seems fixed. Many of you might be asking, what's going to happen the next time we need to apply, if we need to apply? So far, anecdotally, it looks like people are being processed very, very quick for their extended family authorizations now, and we hope that maintains. But this is an example of, even though we hit one success, there are still a lot of things that we need to do. I wouldn't say it's a never-ending battle, but it's certainly a fight that we need to continue to go through in cycles. Temporary residents have not been included, and we've tried a number of different political routes to get this done. The problem has been a lack of political appetite for temporary residents to be included in our exemptions. At the moment, there is a process for them to get in, but they weren't able to make it consistent with us. And that makes me really sad. It's something that we wanted to do and push harder for. And then the hotel quarantines came up, and that really, really threw a wrench into our work. There are 4 spin-off groups that started using our methods and strategies. I think they've all been very successful, and they have been doing fantastic. We ended up speaking twice at parliamentary committees for the impact of COVID-19, and we ended up presenting at 3 of them. So we have input on the immigration impacts of COVID-19, the mental health impacts of COVID-19, and then the hotel quarantine discussion. So we have been present, we are having some say, and I think this is something that we all should be very, very proud of. We'll go into this in the question and answer section, but there is the legal charter challenge and the hotel quarantines. So as you know, in the beginning of March, all people coming into Canada, with very few exceptions, have to pre-book a hotel to come into Canada. They test before they get on the plane to Canada. They test once they arrive in Canada. And once that test comes back, they can leave what they've prepaid 3 days hotel. Then they do a day 10 test to quarantine at home. There are a number of issues with this, and we'll get into that. But in short, as I talked earlier, at one point we were considering our charter challenge, a legal action to get our extended family reunification exemptions. This year, it's not the IRCC. They're not the ones in charge of the hotels. It's transport, health, and possibly public safety. The problem here has been none of them are getting back to me to liaise. As upset as we were about IRCC, at least they spoke to us last year. Transport, health, and public safety have not been talking to us, and that's why we're doing the legal challenge. There appear to be four legal challenges going on. Two of them are in Alberta, one is from Ontario, and then one is ours in the Superior Court of Quebec. One thing that we expanded our scope for after we had our exemption, our spousal sponsorship. There are two reasons for that. Number one, the spousal sponsorship people have been very good at explaining their plight. And as much as we remain separate from them, I understand now the incredible pain that a number of people doing spousal sponsorship are enduring. For that reason alone, we are doing our best to support them with some things that we'll talk about later. In addition to that, it doesn't escape me that a number of us might actually be joining the spousal sponsorship issues in the near future if some of you are not sick of Canada at that point and end up leaving. So these are some things that we'll end up talking about soon. We opened another House of Commons petition to protect our extended family exemptions. So this is where understanding the legal basis of everything is very important. Everything being put upon us is through orders in council. Orders in council are essentially no vote is done. The government just unilaterally says, this is what we are doing. So it's possible that this will never be an issue again. They'll never separate families again because there won't be another pandemic. However, in the event such a thing occurs, we want that to be protected. We want to make sure that what we fought for this time around will never happen again to another group of people. And so our petition, which will be released next week in the House of Commons, I think by MP Dancho, we wanted to protect our status as extended family for future legislation. So if we can get a bill passed or some sort of legislation passed that protects extended family, then no matter what happens in the future with orders in council, extended family will be protected. We'll get into this later on a different slide, but that's the basic idea of how it works. This is how the hotel quarantines are being presented through, interestingly, just the air and not the land. Our suspicion is this. Now, while it's said, the government has said that land will eventually be subject to hotel quarantines. The government has also said it won't actually happen. Our suspicion is twofold. Number one, because the forced mandatory hotel quarantines are likely a violation of our charter, of our constitution, the government of Canada actually can't enforce it. That's why you see so many people not doing the hotel and just walking out of the airport with no one stopping them. That's one bit. So what they do is, in fact, they get the middle person being the airlines, to not let you board if you don't have a hotel reservation. So because of that, this leads us to our second thing. Our strong suspicion is that these hotel travel restrictions, mandatory hotel, is actually a politically motivated plan as opposed to a health motivated plan. This is because, number one, there's a lot more land travel than there is air travel, but they aren't going to hotels. And number two, the government of Canada has yet to produce evidence, and this is very important to understand the distinction, evidence that home quarantine is worse than hotel quarantine. The numbers have to be said very clearly because we don't want to sound like we're saying the wrong stuff or we're uneducated on it. So the missing data, and as confirmed by Patty Haidu, the data is incomplete on if quarantining at home is worse than hotel quarantine. I want to stop the buck right here and say this discussion on vaccines will not change whether or not we need to quarantine. Right now, we still need to quarantine. So our fight is not that quarantine is wrong. Our fight is that expensive hotel quarantine is not shown to be better than at-home quarantine, which is free. We conducted a new mental health survey after the hotel quarantines were announced. 83% of Canadians indicated that they're still separated. That's that's a large number. And then there's 36% who've indicated that they've been apart for more than 11 months. And if you combine that with the spousal sponsorship numbers, we're talking in years for a number of people. A lot of us have been reunited, which has been fantastic, but there's a good portion of us who still haven't. I will talk about the team, at length later on, but a lot of our own team have been unable to reunite under our exemptions, but they still work very hard. And I hope that you understand that the volunteer efforts are for all Canadians, even if it doesn't necessarily benefit us. So this is a picture of our latest mental health index. To interpret the data in front is of the sample of 500 people, the vast majority of them showed moderate to severe symptoms of depression from the mental health index. So because this was done by a survey and not by a clinician administering the survey, it's not diagnostic. You cannot walk out of this and say, I'm depressed, but we can say it shows symptomology. And this is a big concern, and this has been presented to the government, and we will continue to press this. Mental health will be the shadow pandemic, the unseen effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we will be at the forefront to make sure that people are protected and have the right supports that they need. Thank you to everyone who filled out our forms, because it shows a great level of bravery and courage to be able to go through all this. This is a quote that we had during our IRC mental crisis campaign, where we were just taking straight quotes from people. 229 days, divided and alone. We both have PTSD, committed couple, and a child that doesn't understand why our October 15th application isn't approved yet. We need to keep doing better, and that's where we're going to talk about our future. So this is what we are currently needing to do in the long term. Donna's rule. So ever since our exemptions, we articulated the idea that we should institute Donna's rule. As mentioned earlier, extended family is not entrenched in any sort of legislation. That means a war, a conflict, another pandemic, God forbid, something could happen where the borders will close. And there is nothing other than our continued advocacy that might result in people getting protected status as essential. For example, the hotel quarantine. They have not stopped extended family from coming into Canada, but they are subject to the hotel quarantine. Because of this lack of exemption, we need to create a rule, either through a bill or through legislation, that solidifies extended family as a class to be protected in times of war or conflict or pandemic. So I have been in talks with the government about implementing Donna's rule. I think there actually is some appetite for this. Later on, we'll be talking to Donna McCall's child, who will honor her. And we should all remember that Donna's pain should not be repeated. So if anyone asks you, why should we care about extended family? You tell them Donna's rule. You tell them the story of Donna McCall, and this is what we're hoping to fight for. If people ask for a technical term, you tell them we're hoping to entrench extended family exemptions to future travel restrictions. But Donna's rule makes a lot more sense. The Mandamus application process is, we talked with a lawyer for people currently in delayed COPR, so confirmation from residence and spousal sponsorship applications. And in short, if you are someone whose application has exceeded what was told to you, in many cases a year or so, we can file with a lawyer at a discounted rate a Mandamus application, a Mandamus writ. What that is it's saying to the government, you haven't met your standard. If you don't fix it now, we will take further legal action. This is important for a number of reasons. Number one, this level of legal action will probably get the government to process your application. Process does not mean approved. Process just means that it'll be looked at. So that's very important. The second thing weaves into what we've been calling a replace IRCC movement. We believe that IRCC must be completely overhauled for two things: the technology, because their computer systems are outdated, and their second is their culture. Right now, historically, IRCC has taken a approach of ruling people out, because the assumption is that anyone wanting to come into Canada might have been a liar or is not being truthful. We believe that a presumption of innocence should be given. We believe that culture needs to be changed. So if we have enough Mandamus applications, if we have enough legal challenges, if we show the public how many issues there are for immigration, we may be able to replace the IRCC. This does not mean fire every single IRCC worker. A number of them we work with are reasonable people, good people to us, but we need to replace the system and the culture. With any luck, we'll be hopefully getting some of that moving forward. My computer has stalled. I don't know if you guys can see me. Am I still connected? Okay, very, very good. The Charter Challenge is based on 4 issues with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. As you know, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects Canadians, and we're basing it off of 4 sections. Sections 6, 7, 9, and 10. The basic idea is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects mobility rights, so the ability of a Canadian to leave and enter Canada. So while that wasn't necessarily affected because Canadians are always allowed to enter and leave Canada, the quarantine hotels have now impeded that. In terms of sections 9 and 10, the question is whether or not this is unlawful detention, because there's no charge, so to speak, there's nothing we've done wrong. And in addition to that, there is no specified end date. You could leave a hotel at the end of day 3 if you have a negative test, but depending on the test, we actually don't know how long. So this is an indefinite confinement. So we'll see how this works. We presented our Charter Challenge a few weeks ago. We were given a date in early April. April 8th is when they'll look at the Charter Challenge, and I understand this might end up into a declaratory judgment. Will they'll actually say, yes, it violates the Charter, or no, it doesn't violate the Charter. There are some nuances here that this is now the first time I'm talking about this publicly, but I think we need to discuss. I've spoken to the government about this Charter Challenge directly, and their belief is that the hotel quarantine will hit hard and hopefully stop the need for hotel quarantine fast. I strongly suspect that they believe the hotel quarantine will be transient and be gone within a few weeks, that they won't have to deal with any of these legal repercussions. While it's true that might happen, I do not like that. So even if hotel quarantine is gone by the first week of April, we will still do everything we can to pursue this, because as I mentioned before, we cannot allow this to happen to future generations of Canadians, and we need the precedent set to entrench the right to be with family. On March the 10th, we submitted a hotel quarantine safety index to the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. It's called SECU, and here it is. It looks like there are a number of people who are unable to afford the hotel quarantine, which is really difficult because a lot of people have lost their jobs. It has disproportionately affected women. I brought this up with the government directly. They have this entire file. And one thing that we started looking at is the impact on children. And there are a number of you guys with children, and a number of you will have a really hard time. The children have done nothing wrong, and yet they're suffering a lot. So we're doing our best here. Like with the McCalls, the children do not deserve to suffer for all of this.
Are you seeing that people are applying and not being able to get an exemption, or should there be, is more clarity needed, or is it being applied differently? Like, what are you seeing in that respect?
That confusion is exactly what's happening to members, and we feel that system needs to stop because people are already in a very difficult position. So, for example, the exemption to come in a critically ill time. We had someone who is a Canadian citizen who does humanitarian work overseas, could not get a hold of anyone in the government to get a piece of paper saying that they are exempt from the hotel quarantine. The person had to fly in, wasn't sure what was going to happen. The CBSA officer had to make the decision right there and then. Very stressful when her father is dying. We had someone who had to go to Portugal to attend the funeral, coming back, no exemption given. And in addition to that, did not even need to complete all 3 days because the second test came back soon enough, but was still charged the full amount, which was in excess of 3,000 Canadian dollars. These people are suffering. Family is essential, and yet we are adding an extra burden to them without actually showing the data that hotel quarantine is superior to at-home safe quarantine. The reason why why we're showing this clip is we're still relevant in the conversation. And I know a lot of you guys are feeling very tired and take the rest and health that you need, but we are making an impact and we will continue to press forward, even if you guys need a break for a little long. We have a wonderful team, but we could use your help when you're ready. So we have a little social media campaign talking about the challenges with the hotel quarantines. The meals, for example, their promised dietary restrictions would be met. That's not occurring. So the Canadian Constitutional Foundation, I believe, their charter challenge is based on something like the hotels not meeting the needs. The foods also have been delayed and not very good quality, although some have been apparently good quality, but we have quite bad reports. There are sometimes not enough security for people, and people are actually not able to contact anyone. We had a recent report where someone doesn't speak English and there's no Spanish service. Like, how are they going to go through all this? Where's the extra security? People are apparently walking out for smoke breaks, walking out for dog walks. There are no deadbolts on the doors. How do you feel safe in that situation? And in addition, apparently the transport to the hotels is not consistent. People are being exposed. How is this any safer than going back to your home? And I made it clear in media, if they have definitive proof that hotel quarantine is 1,000 times better than home quarantine, okay, we'll accept that. But it's not there. The proof is not there at all, and they're asking a lot from us in that process. So what's next? The government of Canada has kept families in the same immigration group as the rest of Canada. So I've asked repeatedly, we've all asked repeatedly, that family is considered a separate group. But they're saying, no, we're keeping you in the same block. You still have to do the hotel quarantine. Therefore, what is good for Canadians is good for Canadian families. And this brings us to our pivot. Canadian families have been disproportionately harmed by travel restrictions. There's no question on that. Your children, your partners, your loved ones. Applying for group exemptions for each new travel restriction is unsustainable. We got our exemptions to come into Canada. Now we need to get one for the hotels. What happens next? What happens the next time there's a new travel restriction? Are we going to have to, because we aren't entrenched once again, are we going to have to get new ones each time? COVID-19 will be here for a long time, even with vaccinations. Get your vaccination, very important, but COVID will be here for a long time, and we must prepare for that. Knowing the long-term timeline and milestones will help Canadian families plan their lives. We're not asking for everything to be fixed by this date, but we need something to look forward to. We need to see the end of the tunnel, and we need to know what metrics to look out for in order to feel more secure that the government is looking out for Canadian families. Because as I've shown, as we've all seen, a lot of this appears to be political, not science-based, and we worry that families will fall through the cracks again, because as much as we've pleaded, we are not being seen as a separate category. We've been flattening the curve. Now give us a plan. For the past year, we've had a very effective motto, and I think for the next year, we have an effective one too. The curve is getting flatter. There are things we need to do better. Canadians are still under threat. That is not a question. But we have been meeting a lot of the requirements. We've been wearing our masks. We're getting our vaccinations. We're not asking or demanding everything to be done by next week, but we need a plan. Monthly renewals of, just today, the border restrictions, without knowing exactly at what number we're going to be okay at. These are all things that are causing disproportionate stress on families, and they must be dealt with now. We've been flattening the curve. Now give us a plan. We continue to advocate for those who cannot. I'd like to take a brief moment to thank the team. Some people have chosen to give me their real name said out loud, and some have not. But I want to highlight the work of our Chair of Québécois Affairs. This person has been spearheading the translations for almost all of our documents, if not all. But in addition to that, this person's work has helped solidify the charter challenge we have at the Superior Court of Quebec. Because of that person, we have legitimacy as a real player in this field, and I thank the chair of Québécois Affairs for that person's tireless work. There's so many hours dealing with this. Our Director of Operations, Sean, has been covering the Reunification Thursdays, our Thank You Tuesdays. He always has great ideas on how to measure things, and I admit, I tend to play things a lot safer, and Sean helps me get that strength for the entire team to go in and play a little bit more aggressively to get what we need. So our Director of Operations has been nonstop. I don't think any of the team have really taken a day off in this process. Our Chief of Staff, who prefers to go by Stephen now, he's done fantastic work consistently guiding our admin team, which I'll mention at the bottom, and also essentially keeping us together. A lot of the items that are rejected in the Facebook group are done so because we need to focus on succeeding. So I know many of you want to have your story posted, and many of you need an immediate answer to your question that's already been answered. But the Chief of Staff and the admin team spend a lot of their day filtering through posts that simply should not be reposted. So I beg of you, if you're watching this, do your legwork, see what has already been answered, and see what you can contribute, because we all need to work together to succeed. If you have an idea, do some legwork, figure out how to do it, propose it, we can figure it out together. But this person has been going through, and the admin team have been going through a lot of really difficult posts, and we want to be able to focus on succeeding. Our Chief Data Analyst has helped crunch a number of our numbers and was instrumental in pulling together our Mandamus application for spousal sponsorship applications. And so that level of work has been fantastic because now we have something organized and are able to help a whole other group of people. Our Director of Public Relations has been just wonderful in making sure that people feel thanked and appreciated. She personally writes every FAQ Friday, which I admit was something that I could not do because I was too angry at people not reading what's on the site. So this person has been taking a lot of time, taking care, and so thank you, Kate, for doing that. Our Chief Technical Officer, Liz, has been doing the technical side of things. She helps run our, I think she runs our Discord, she runs our website, and I gave her a bunch of slides and she put together this application. And she's also spearheading a lot of the work in indexing the hotel quarantine issues. Our Director of Social Media has my passwords for all the social media because I certainly can't do it very, very well. And has been keeping things up. Our Chair of Triage essentially has been doing every single thing we need to get done and has spearheaded a lot of the hotel quarantine work. And I'm very thankful for her efforts there because we needed that spot filled and she was able to fill it. We have a Chief Political Advisor who has been doing a lot of work that I do not comment on, but that person has been doing a lot of work. And of note, this person has also not been able to reunite, but still works tirelessly for us. Chief Medical Advisor has been with us since the beginning, and we're just so, so grateful. I think this person who calls herself my executive assistant, I've never seen someone work so hard to have an assistant position, but she's been wonderful and filling out all the gaps that we need and has put in, I think, as many hours as a full-time job sometimes. And then the face of our advocacy has been Sarah Campbell, who is now married, Sarah Taylor, and she'll be speaking with us in a few moments. The admin team is the one specific team that I want to highlight today because they have been working nonstop. There are many other teams in the group, but I wanted to highlight Lisa, Catherine, Stephen, and Ashley because they have had to work every single day, no breaks for them. Because every day there's new posts, every day there's new things to moderate. That has been the most tireless, thankless job. So if you have one moment today to send them a thanks, I hope you can. We also have a mental health officer. We had a previous director of policy who was with us since the beginning. Very well missed. And of course, AJ and I thank you for being with us this far. So right now we have Donna McCall's child here. Meg, are you on the call? All right, so we're going to unmute and then she will speak. Okay, Meg, I think you're perfect.
I think we're good. Hi, I am John and Donna McCall's daughter. My name is Meghan Owens, and I was asked to speak today on behalf of my family. First, I want to say thank you to David and to the team of Faces of Advocacy, as well as to the entire Faces of Advocacy community for your support this past year for my family while my mom was sick and we were unable to travel to see her. And when she passed away and we were able to reunify. And now when my dad is currently alone in Canada because the current travel restrictions make it too difficult for myself, my brother, or my uncles, my dad's brothers, to come to see him. My mom's legacy can really be summed up in just a few words: compassion for others. Reflecting back on this year and this group's work, it just keeps coming back to compassion. What we ask of others who have little understanding of binational families and relationships is just that, compassion. Everywhere in the world, we need more of it. We also need to remind ourselves to extend this compassion to others who are hurtful towards us because they're fearful of travelers and they're angry about the restrictions. They're taking it out on us who are also hurting. While we continue to demand fair treatment from the government and demand a plan, we must continue to act compassionately. Be like my dad, be like my mom. Extend compassion and grace to others, even if they don't necessarily extend it to you. This is the way that you can carry my mom with you throughout 2020. Thank you. Or 2021.
Meghan, John, your family has been incredible, the strength you've shown, and we hope we can honor Donna's legacy as best as we can. Donna's rule is something we're not stopping to push on, and we're just so grateful that you allow us to advocate in her name. Of trivia, every single brief we send to the government has a page dedicated to Donna McCall. So at the very least, they all know your mother's name, and we will not forget her. Our next speaker is our face of the Faces of Advocacy, Sarah Taylor, who has wonderfully been married, and she joins us here.
Hi, I was at work all day and did not really prepare anything, so this is a little off the cuff, but I just wanted to thank everyone here and to thank anyone watching after the fact. 2020 was by far the most challenging year of my life. There's people who have really struggled to just get through the pandemic. And then there's us who, on top of that struggle, we've also been separated from our families. And then for me, on top of that, I had a cancer diagnosis, and I had to walk through a lot of that treatment by myself. And it was really dark. It was really difficult. But what kept me inspired, what kept me going, what kept me motivated was being part of this, knowing that this was something bigger than just me. And I just really want to emphasize to everyone that, I could have really just sat back and complained about my situation, but I chose to take action. I chose to, start this crazy handwritten letter campaign. I chose to participate in our reunification Thursdays every single week. And, through that action and being really active on social media, accepting every single media invitation that I could, and that was offered to me, it was through that action and that persistence that really ended up paying off in the long run, I think. And So I want to encourage anyone who is still separated, who's still really struggling and feels that just hopelessness and, you know, just the weight of how long it's been and how long this struggle has been, that, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that this will end. And, you know, I know it's easy for me to say that because I'm sitting here and Jacob is just sitting in the same room as me, just over the side. But I just want to encourage you to keep persisting, to keep taking that action, and, you know, take care of yourselves first, as I'm sure David would say. But by all means, you know, just be encouraged. Your actions matter. This all matters so much, this work. And if it wasn't for all of you, for all of your support, you know, Jacob and I would not be together. We wouldn't be moved here to England. We wouldn't be married, and I could not have gotten through treatment and diagnosis. I couldn't have survived 2020 without you guys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, John. Thank you, Donna. Donna was such an inspiration to me personally, and, you know, I continue to carry her with me, and I just want you to know that. So I'm going to stop talking now, but I love you guys. I love all of you. And as David says, keep pressing forward, keep pressing on.
You are all so wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And Sydney brings a good point. We really appreciate you still helping. You, the McCalls, I mean, had you just cut your own side deal or something, none of us would have had that level of visibility is the wrong word, but it is the appropriate one here, the level of visibility and compassion that you brought upon us. So thank you all. We have 12 minutes left if anyone wants to ask any questions. Today marks the anniversary of the travel restrictions, and we're not going anywhere. All right, open question time. And if there are none, then I'm just going to twiddle my thumbs until the timer runs out. Okay, so is there any chance Canada is going to let fully vaccinated and extended family members cross without quarantine anytime soon? This question from Mele. So I'm going to answer this now, not as a physician. I'm going to answer this as David Poon, private citizen, using publicly available knowledge. I'm trying to keep it separate. So the reason why vaccinations will not save us in this scenario are twofold. Number one, your luggage, your glove, your body can still bring COVID inside the country. So even if you are not able to get it, the fact if you don't wash your hands and you touch some doorknob and then you touch someone you got home, this is referred to as a fomite. A fomite is just the vector of spread. So that's one major issue. The second major issue is a fully vaccinated extended family member would require the implementation of vaccine passports. Vaccine passports sound like a good idea to most. The problem with vaccine passports is it highlights a horrifically inequitable process. So I'm lucky to have my vaccine, okay? But some people are not lucky to have a vaccine. Does it suddenly mean that I can go partying and they can't? So the whole idea would be an obscene political move. And so that's why I do not think vaccines are what's going to save us for the exemptions. Vaccines will save us all in terms of our life. Vaccines very important. Get your vaccine. No one come out of this say David Poon doesn't care about vaccines. Vaccines very important, but it will not change the current strategy, I believe, for our international travel. The court will have to look at our assessment on April the 8th and will very likely make an assessment. If our chair of Quebecois Affaires is willing to speak, that person can speak now here as well. But as I understand it, the court on the 8th should be making a decision at that point because we've already had the delay between early in March until April the 8th. So April 8th is when they have to make the decision. I don't know if it'll be on that day, but that's when they have to do it. So it might take a few days or something, but that's when it has to happen.
So okay, so I'm going to take them together. Somebody in chat is asking, isn't there a court hearing tomorrow? There is. It is not ours. That court hearing is brought forth by the Canadian Constitution Foundation, and they are asking for an injunction and a stay. That may affect the proceedings for our hearing because it is in depth the same question. However, I have not been given any information from our legal counsel as to exactly how it would affect it. What I can tell you is that our court hearing, which is on the 8th, will be on the depth of the question. So we basically forwent having an interim hearing and went straight to an earlier date to have a resolution on the constitutionality of the hotel quarantine. I don't know if that answered the question. I hope it was helpful.
That person has been our wonderful chair of Québécois Affairs, who has put this entire thing. It was thanks to her that we were able to even have the charter challenge. So 1,000% gratefulness to that person. Okay, then there's a second question. Do you have any more information you can share about the hotel quarantine charter challenge? Would you like to add more, Chair, or should I just talk in general terms on it?
I'm sorry, the person who's asking for more information, I'd like them to type in chat what exactly they want to know. Or maybe to use their voice.
To give a basic, as they type it in chat, I guess the basic idea is there are a number of plaintiffs. Okay. We're saying that, yeah, just a basic idea, yeah.
So I mean, okay, so the whole point of a charter challenge is basically to express to the courts that there is a rule that has been put forward, and we believe that this rule is unlawful as regards the Constitution. The Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada. So any other rule that is implemented by the government must respect it. So we're proposing that that is not the case with the hotel quarantine for a variety of reasons, to do with safety, to do with our mobility rights, also to do with our rights not to be detained, and to do with the burden, the unfair burden it places on family. Essentially, the court's job is going to be to analyze the Constitution, the jurisprudence, as well as the orders in council, and make that determination. Of course, in that case, there are plaintiffs as part of it because you need to have people who are directly affected by the rule who are contesting it. So what are our next steps if we succeed in getting exemptions or eliminating hotel quarantine? That's for you, David. I'm not going to touch that. Yeah, I think that's it.
So if we succeed, the hotel quarantine will likely be stopped. That alone is a great victory. Now, following that, we have a number of pieces that are going to have to be done. So whatever happens, people are still going to be separated. So I have asked, I've started the process with Minister Freeland's office and none of it's confirmed, so this is not something that you tell everyone, oh, this is going to happen, to give a refund for those who did family reunification and went through hotel quarantine. So that's one thing I want. So those who've already had to pay, if we can give them back $1,000, I would really like that. So that's something that we're currently working for together. Then comes the big battles that we've always wanted to deal with, but the hotel quarantine got in the way. And that's solidifying that family reunification should be set in stone. So this will be done in two ways. Number one, Donna's rule, which people in the government have already contacted us about seeing how to actually do it. I cannot promise you that it will happen, but that's actually something that I think they're looking into, which makes me very happy. The second bit is doing something on a more international stage, but that's kind of in the earlier process. Our next immediate goal, the next big fight, in addition to Donna's rule, will be our replace IRCC. Because my strong suspicion is now that Americans are in the immigration system, there's going to be something to do with immigration for a lot of people moving forward. We need a good system. All it'll take is another hiccup. Let's say they do quarantine passports, vaccine passports. Are we going to have 3 weeks to wait for our passport to be processed again? So we need to replace IRCC. And then the final ultimate goal for this section of our battle would to become essentially an immigration watchdog. Put into place what we can do to make things better. So any type of infarction, any type of problem that you guys see, any complaint, write it down, because when things get better, and I promise you they will, we're going to need all this ammunition to make things better in the future. Sorry if I missed this topic. Lots of issues with take-home quarantine, COVID test at land border with not enough nurses able to take test by video at the time, prolonging quarantine past 14 days. Oh yes, I've heard of this one. Simply because government hasn't provided enough support to follow their own rules. Again, travelers suffer under threat of fines or imprisonment when they have followed the strict guidelines. Okay, so I'm hearing that there's a number of tests that actually aren't coming back on time. So which Jennifer is this? Have we talked before? Do I know you? Because we could use some help maybe amassing those complaints and putting it into another report. This is where our chief of staff has been saying, you know, we could use the help. If you have an idea, let's press forward together. This Jennifer, do I know you? Have we met before? Okay, anyway, please contact us at the Faces of Advocacy, the team, or myself, Poon at facesofadvocacy.com, because we could use someone maybe consolidating this, because this is the second or third report I've heard of this, people missing their day 10 timeframe because there's no support, and we need to identify that, essentially record every problem. And then our chair of Québécois Affairs is saying something. Yeah, there is an incredible translation pool of volunteers who pick it up. I wanted to highlight every single team today. Translation would have been the second after the admin team. It's just that the admin team has gone through so much difficult stuff. All right, we're at our last minute. Any last questions? Thank you, all of you, for being here. Please encourage other people to watch this video when we post it. Thank you for your diligence, and we'll keep on pressing forward together. Talk to you guys later.